Welcome into TCO Studios. I'm Tatum Everett. Today is a day that is exciting for fans, but bittersweet here at Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center. 76 players whittled down to 53. I am now joined by voice of the Vikings, Paul Allen, Vikings radio analyst Pete Bercich here to talk about roster cutdown day. It's a little bit of a sad day for some guys.
Yeah, you know, when I got to the facility, I saw some of the players who had been cut. I saw them leaving, and it was a little disheartening. You just feel bad for people, but, you know, Pete played in the NFL and coached and actually was known as the Turk, the one who had to go to players back in the day and let them know they were cut. That had to be difficult.
It wasn't fun, and I had been cut from the Vikings 3 times. So the last one was actually on a Monday after the team had been down to 51 players, I believe. So I wasn't even in the top 50 that year. So, yeah, it's something that, let's face it, as a player, it's going to happen to you. Very few guys can pick their retirement, but it's a tough day, but it's also an amazing day when you're one of the 53 and you can actually sit back and take a breath and go, I made it, celebrate it for maybe an hour or two, and then get ready for the regular season.
Yes, of course, you can see that full list on Vikings.com. But let's talk about what happened today and the biggest storylines of these roster cuts. 23 players trimmed down. We'll start with quarterbacks. Obviously, Kirk Cousins has the starting role, but it was more about the conversation of who will play behind him with Nate Stanley waived, with Jake Browning released. We've got Kellen Mond on the active roster.
Yeah, the fact that they have settled in on 2 quarterbacks, I'm a fan of that because there was a lot of chatter about bringing in a veteran backup. And, I mean, the personnel people here put in so much time that I'm not a big second-guess guy on what they do because there are things that they're doing that we just don't know completely what leads into it. But Kirk plays all the games, and Kirk takes hits, and he keeps on ticking. So I never saw the desire for a veteran backup quarterback. You're not cutting Kellen. So therefore, that makes sense to me.
No, you're right. And I think Kellen showed enough improvement from that first game to the third game where he finally had some time to operate in the system. He showed his ability to get down the field. He showed his ability to extend plays with his legs and look down the field. That being said, if we had to use a backup quarterback to get out of a game, I think Kellen Mond would be perfect. Now, if you're saying Cousins is going to be out for an extended period of time, that's when maybe you need to step back and look for a veteran backup. But I think going into the season, Cousins and his durability and how much he's been around and his consistency in that respect, and Kellen Mond, I think you're great at that position.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going to use a third-round draft pick on a position player like that. And obviously one of his targets, or Kirk Cousins' targets, is going to be a little delayed in this season. Irv Smith needing meniscus surgery. So now we see the tight end room. We've got Tyler Conklin and Brandon Dillon behind Irv Smith Jr. there on the roster. With Smith's developing injury, how does that affect this roster and what they have done today?
Well, there are reports that the Vikings are trading for New York Jets tight end Chris Herndon. So Chris has played the game for several years out of the University of Miami. Now, I'm not completely up to speed at this stage as to whether he's a better run blocker, pass catcher, or whatever, but he knows how to play the game. And if that's accurate, then obviously that would help. But outside of that, you know, what an opportunity for Tyler Conklin. Now, Irv Smith Jr. will be missed. There's no doubt for however long he's out, but Tyler flashed nicely last year. Big opportunity for him.
It is, and he did, and Tyler Conklin flashed in the passing game mostly. And so if the Vikings decide to bring in someone, I know Brandon Dillon, how good of a blocker he is, let's see, but Dalvin Cook is this offense. And if you go back and look at his big runs from a year ago, you know, Irv Smith was in for quite a bit. A lot was Kyle Rudolph. So in my opinion, bringing in that blocking threat at tight end is more important because we have plenty of wide receivers, right? Yeah. You know, is Irv the number 3 receiver? You know, are we going to have 3 wide? You know, obviously 3 wides is the way we're going to go. Make sure that tight end can block in the run, and I think we're going to be just fine.
Yeah.
And the 2 names that were released today, Shane Zylstra and Zach Davidson, could be floating around for practice squad reasons.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's move to the other side of the ball, though, and begin with the defensive line. Kenny Willekes was cut, as well as Hercules Mataafa. But I think the other name that we are missing up there on the defensive line that we kind of thought would be up there would be Everson Griffin.
Yeah, with Everson, being part of the initial cuts. I'm not privy to the intel as to exactly what has gone into this decision, A. But B, Everson got here so late, and Mike Zimmer had so many glowing things to say about him that I just can't believe that there aren't layers to this that we just don't see right now. Would you agree?
I would agree, and I think if you take a look at Weatherly and Wanham, the guys who are going to co-anchor, I would think, the right side of that defensive line. You want to motivate those two, you let them know that they've got this veteran free agent just waiting for a phone call. So if you mess up this much, we're going to bring this other guy back in. So, I think they understand and they look around and they know if they release Weatherly or Wanham, probably going to get picked up right away.
100%.
You're going to have Everson Griffin. He's going to be out there, and I think they expect him, or would even 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks down the road, he'll still be there.
Yeah, and just to close, with Everson and the defensive ends, is if it ends up being DJ Wanham, Stephen Weatherly, and Patrick Jones, I'm cool with that because they're all good. Patrick is young. And then on the other side, you have the big horse in Daniil, who he accounts for sack numbers for 2 players every year he steps on the field. So I'm curious to see where this goes, but with what they have now, I like it.
Let's talk about safety. Miles Dorn was cut today, leaving 4 names on the active roster: Harrison Smith, Xavier Woods, Josh Metellus, and Cameron Bynum. That's 2 more than they had last season, but you like these guys.
Yeah, let's let the analysts take it away on this because during the Chiefs game when we were calling it and General Manager Rick Spielman was in the booth with us, Pete and Rick got into a really, really compelling conversation about Cam Bynum, converted corner from Cal. Well, so I know with Bynum, and I think Metellus is A+ potential on special teams, but with Bynum, what do you think?
No, I think Bynum has done something that, even very few players can do, and that's make the transition from corner to safety. And the difference being, as a corner, you can ask, Patrick Peterson, he's going to tell you it's man-to-man most of the time anyway, even if we're playing zone. But when you go to safety now, there's a whole different animal where you have to understand the defense. Now you talk about blitzing. Now you're talking about run support. Now you're talking about adjustments and all those things. So it's both physical and mental, and not many players can do that. And really, I think the physical side of it, and Cameron being able, and his willingness to stick his nose in there, make some good tackles, he has shown, I think, enough potential at that position where the Vikings are like, okay, we'll keep you for a year. You're going to be playing some special teams, maybe get a start if somebody goes down, but we're going to give you another opportunity next year to maybe take one of the starting roles.
Yeah.
So after seeing these 23 names on the list, for you, Paul, what's the most surprising release?
Well, seeing Everson Griffin on the list did catch me off guard, and that's why I just can't believe that there aren't layers here to it that we just don't see, and that's with no proclamation that he will be on the team when they go to Cincinnati. So that one got me. Likewise for the long snapper, Andrew DePaula. I don't really understand what's going on there, and wouldn't be surprised if it's a situation where they needed a spot somewhere else, and DePaula, who was very good last year in a difficult situation, where he will definitely be on the team when we go to Cincinnati. I'd say it was those two, Amir Abdullah maybe a little bit.
Yeah, I think Amir Abdullah would be the one name, the guy that you saw the most in the preseason. I mean, they leaned on him at the running back position, obviously not playing Dalvin Cook. Thought he played very, very well. He's been a very reliable player as a wide receiver, running back, special teams, out in the routes, the whole thing. So I think Amir Abdullah would be the biggest loss, if you will, or at least from a productivity standpoint on this cut pick.
Dakota Dozier too. I mean, it's not like Dakota Dozier is Steve Hutchinson, Randall McDaniel, or Marshall Yanda reincarnate, but he is somebody who knows how to play the game. He has a veteran presence, but quite honestly, he didn't have a very good preseason.
No, he didn't, and that's what you want. When you have guys like Wyatt Davis who are learning the game, and then you have a veteran out there making mistakes, getting holding penalties in the end zone, jumping off sides. If I'm a GM, I'm saying, well, you're a veteran because you don't do those things. I'm going to go with the guy who has all the potential And if we're going to have someone out there making mistakes, I'm going to have the guy with the potential out there making those mistakes.
And no Wap failure. I mean, that's no surprise to anybody. But
you just wanted to call his name.
Oh, I just wanted to say Wap, there he is. Wap, there he is. When he gets a touchdown, so I guess we'll have to wait for that one.
Opportunity lost for you, Paul. Sorry about that. Now, these cuts, they are sometimes really tough to hear, but it is a very exciting time to watch this 2021 team form. Now, of course, we still have the 16-man practice squad to fill out, as well as the waiver wiring opening up. So plenty of storylines to be determined here. Be sure to stick with Vikings.com and the Vikings app for the latest on your Minnesota Vikings. For Paul Allen, Pete Bercich, I'm Tatum Everett, Skol Vikes.